Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to our virtual classroom. Today coming from my home, which is totally fine. And right off the bat, please forgive the glare. There's this window right here, and I know there's this massive glare on my glasses. So hopefully that is not too distracting. But all that aside, let us go ahead and begin. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be doing lesson 1-1. In fact, if you go to your OneNote notebook and you scroll down to your name and click under Notes, you'll see that it is our 6th lesson. By the way, if it is too small, if you want to go by that, you can always click on it and just click on grow and it'll get bigger. Otherwise, technically you won't necessarily be looking at it right here because I will be sharing my screen and you'll be able to see a larger version of it over here. But that is our 6th item in our table of contents. And also what I do want you to do actually is go to your first 9 weeks work tab, first 9 weeks work, scroll down to 1-1, 1-1, because we will be using our textbook quite a bit. Remember that you can minimize all this by simply clicking on these books over here. And yes, you want to make that as large as you're comfortable with because we will be using this quite a bit here today. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, what I do want you to do throughout this lesson also, as you're watching this video, is that if you ever need to pause this video in order to copy something down or maybe rewind, please do so, okay? That's one of the perks of having a recording, that you can always go back and rewatch something. And with that in mind, let's go ahead and get started. Once again, please take some time to take out your physical notebook. I recommend that you pause this video as you copy down the heading, as well as the big number 6 up here on the right-hand side, as this is our 6th lesson. Again, this is our 6th actual lesson, our 6th actual lesson. And today we're going to go over 1-1, comparing and ordering numbers. You will find this on page 13 through 15. And these are the numbers that you are responsible for. We are going to be dealing with other numbers in the textbook. We are actually going to be using the textbook quite a bit today. But those are the ones that you'll find on Schoology. Anyways, if we look at number 1 on our textbook, so let me go back to our textbook. If we look at number 1 on our textbook, you're going to see a table that looks something like this. You will find a table that looks something like this, correct? And essentially what we're going to do is that we're going to be looking at these numbers up here, and we're going to be plotting those numbers on this table. Now the question becomes, well, why? Ladies and gentlemen, up until this point, we have been dealing with integers. We have been dealing with integers. And integers, if you remember, are simply numbers with no decimal value. They can be negative, they include the number 0, and they can also be positive. But yes, those are integers, numbers with no decimal value. Today, however, we're going to begin looking at rational numbers, just integers are also rational numbers, at rational numbers that do have a decimal value, okay? So not integers necessarily. And we're going to learn how to compare and order these numbers. And one of the ways that we can do that is to simply line these numbers up. So once again, if I can look at my textbook over here, what I recommend is that you pause this video and then you copy down this table, just as I have done so over here as well. Notice that instead of writing down the actual name of, these are actually Paramecium, which are a type of a single-celled organism. Instead of writing Aurelia, I just put the number A. Instead of writing Berseria, I put the letter B. Instead of Caudatum, I put C. Instead of Multimicronucleatum, I put M, or multi. But go ahead and take about a minute to copy down, or rather just pause the video, copy down this table onto your notebook, just as I have done so. And when you're ready, go ahead and resume. Okay, assuming that you've already copied it down, let's go ahead and look at some of these numbers. All right, I'm going to be working off of my textbook right here, but please do not write, if you're using a physical textbook, write it on your notebook now that you have this table on there. Let's look at Aurelia here. Oops, give me 1 second. Let me make this a little bit larger. Okay, let us look at Aurelia, which is the first of these paramecium that we're looking at. We're looking at the length for each of these paramecium, and I wish I had a ruler to show you exactly how small these are. And so this is in meters, and if you've ever seen a meter stick or a yardstick, a meter is pretty big, right? A meter is pretty big. So notice how none of these have anything on the ones as far as meters go. And even if we look at the tenth of a meter, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. If we look at the hundredths of a meter, which is the second zero after the decimal, notice how still there's nothing there. By the way, if there was a 1 there, that would be 1 centimeter, and a centimeter is about this big. All right, so that means obviously, I mean, if I saw a bacteria or a single cell organism that was even this big, I would probably freak out. So thank God that these things are quite smaller than this. But finally, we get to the thousandths of a meter, or rather, we also call these millimeters, millimeter. But yes, as you can see, some of these do have, actually all but one of these do have a number right there, meaning this is, if you look at a ruler and you look at the centimeters and you look at the tiny little lines between the centimeters, those are millimeters. That means that you could probably actually see some of these if you look closely enough. You probably wouldn't even need a microscope. So as far as bacteria go, these are quite large, but they're still pretty small, about maybe a quarter the size of a grain of rice. Anyways, what we're going to do is that we're going to organize these onto this table. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and do that. So let's begin with Aurelia. Aurelia has 156, and we're going to look at the tenths, hundredths, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s. So it's on 156 100,000ths of a meter. You always go by the last number. And how do I know that it's 100,000ths? Well, let's go ahead and plot this onto the table. So Aurelia, we have 0 on the ones. Okay, good. It's not a meter long. Here's the decimal. We have a 0 on the tenths. That would be 10 centimeters. We have a 0 on the hundredths. Good, it's not a centimeter long. That looks terrible. I'm sorry. I'm using a new mouse, so this is a lot harder than it looks. Thousandths. So if you can see, there is 1 on the thousandths. So that would be at least a millimeter. A 5 on the 10,000ths, and a 6 on the 100,000ths. So the way that I would read this number is 156 100,000ths. 100,000ths. Very good. Let's move on to the next one. Berseria, or B, as I put on my table. We have 0 on the ones, and you guys go ahead and finish this table. You don't need me to do it for you. I guess we'll do it all together. 0 on the thousandths, and finally there is a 9 on the 10,000ths and a 7 on the 100,000ths. So the way that I would read this number is 97 100,000ths of a meter. Caudatum, or C, we have 0 on the ones also, 0 on the tenths, 0 on the hundredths, 1 on the thousandths, 8 on the 10,000ths, 1 on the 100,000ths. So this would be 181 100,000ths. And finally, multimicronucleatum, sorry. Try to say that 5 times fast. Anyways, so 0 on the tenths, 0 on the hundreds, and a 2 on the thousandths. So this would be 2 thousandths of a meter. Hopefully that's just review from 5th grade as to how you actually say these numbers, but you just look at the last numbers, you say the number and you add the suffix. So in this case, it would be 2 thousandths of a meter. So your table should look something like this. Now, when comparing numbers, notice how some of these look longer, meaning they have more digits than others. But let me ask you a question. Which of these numbers, now that we have it on the table, and I'm going to erase all this, you should have this on your notebook. If you don't, I recommend you pause the video and you finish copying this down into your notes. Looking at all of these numbers, which of these is the largest? Looking at these, which is the largest? Now, some of you will be tempted to say, well, 181 is the largest number, right? So that should be the largest. Kadatum should be the largest. Ladies and gentlemen, that it would be incorrect. That would be incorrect. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, when you are comparing decimals, you have to go from left to right. You have to go from left to right. So looking at these decimals right here, notice, ladies and gentlemen, how if I look at just the ones place, let me isolate the ones place. The ones place being this over here. Notice how they have nothing on the ones place. Okay, that's fine. Let's go ahead and look at the next. Let's look at the tenths place. Tenths place, again, all of them have a 0 on the tenths place, so I can't tell which is largest. Let's go to the hundredths place, and again, none of these have anything in the hundredths place, so they're all the same so far, right? So I can't tell which is largest. But finally, when I get to the thousandths place, notice how right here, we can start seeing some things. And again, this is A, Aurelia, B, Berseria, C, Caudatum, and M for multinucleate, the other one, right? Anyways, notice how Aurelia has a 1, Berseria has a 0, Caudatum has a 1, and Multinucleatum has a 2. Ladies and gentlemen, just now that I can see here, again, I was going from left to right, immediately I can tell that the largest of all of these is actually this one. That's it. But Mr. Lugo, these ones have more digits. It doesn't matter, ladies and gentlemen. You always go from left to right, and once you encounter a number, whatever digit is, oh, not digit, whatever number is the greatest in that greater place value, then that is the largest number. And that's pretty much it. So the largest of those would be the M, right? This one. Now, which of these would be the smallest? Well, we follow the same exact process. I'm going to start here again in the thousands. Let's start here in the thousands. And looking at the thousands, I can see that the only one that doesn't have a digit there would be B, Berseria. And so that would actually be the smallest. There's nothing there. Yes, I understand there's a 9, but again, you have to go from left to right. You have to go from left to right looking at each one. So the smallest would be Berseria. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that for the most part, that was actually a review. But now that we've done that, now we can actually go on to number 7, which number 7 is going to be using the information here in number 6. This is actually number 7 is the first one from your actual submission. So again, what I recommend is that you pause this video as you actually copy down this table that you see here on number 6 that we're going to be using for number 7, just as I've done so also here on my actual notebook. Here is my table. And again, I'm going to give you about a minute to do so. All right, on this table, now we're looking at the same 4 paramecium, Aurelia, Berseria, Caudatum, and Multimicronucleatum. And we're adding a 5th one, Geningaceae, that I will simply call Gen. And now instead of measuring the length of the paramecium, we're measuring the time that it took the paramecium to cover 10 millimeters. 10 millimeters, which is actually a centimeter. A centimeter is about the length of your I guess your thumbs. All our thumbs are a little bit different. I guess my thumbs nail, but whatever. Anyways, so they're swimming. They're having a little race, right? And here you can see the times. All right, 11 and 6/10 seconds. So it took it 11 seconds to cross the length of your thumbnail. Berseria 11.3 or 11 and 3/10, Caudatum 13 and 4/10, Multimicronucleatum 12 and 7/10, and Geningaceae took 13. That is an integer, by the way. Look, that has no decimal value. Anyways, what we're gonna do, again, assuming that you've paused the video and you've already copied down these, is that you are you're gonna copy down this number line. It's actually a little bit harder to draw, but it doesn't have to be perfect. But notice how on this number line, which I'm just going to use the one here on the book, notice how not only do we have the integers 11, 12, 13, and 14, 11 seconds, 12 seconds, 13 seconds, and 14 seconds, but we have some lines in between. And just by looking at them, I can tell that each of these lines represents 2/10. What do I mean by 2/10? Meaning that this one is 11.2. This would be 11.4. This would be 11.6, 11.8, and finally 12, meaning that in between of each of those, we have 11.1, 11.2, 11.3, 11.4, 11.5, 11.6, 11.7, 11.8, 11.9, and 11.10 would actually be 12. Hopefully you're familiar with that. And please note that as we are plotting these onto this number line. So let me make this just a little bit smaller so that we can actually see the values on the table. So ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do is actually plot these on the table so that we can see which of these is the fastest and which of these is the slowest. All right, here I see that Aurelia was 11.6, so that would be 11.246. So 11.6, here we have Aurelia. So I'm going to put an A for Aurelia. Good job, Aurelia. Well done. All right, Berseria, 11.3. All right, so it's 11.2 and 0.4. So 11.3 is going to be right here between 0.2 and 0.4. So that's going to be Berseria. Berseria, awesome. It took Berseria less time, meaning it was faster than Aurelia. I can tell because when you have a race, the less the time, the better, right? Anyways, Caudatum, 13.4. Caudatum's over here, 13.4. Caudatum, good effort. Well done. So I'm going to put a C here for Caudatum. Multimicronucleatum, 12.7, 12.2, 4, 6, and 7 would be right here. Nice. And Jennings, or rather Jen, has 13, so that's going to be right over here. Jen. All right. So now that you've plotted those, or if you're just looking at the recording, now that I've plotted that, we can ask ourselves the question, which of these was the fastest? Which of these was the fastest? Now, some of you guys, just by looking at these, you would say, well, 13.4 would be the greatest one. So that's the fastest, right? No, ladies and gentlemen, that's actually the slowest, because again, when you have a race, you want to have the least amount of time, right? So I can clearly see that the fastest of these would be, oops, I did not want to erase that, B, Berseria. So you see why putting these in a number line actually made this a lot easier for us, because Berseria was the fastest, followed by Aurelia, followed by Multimicronucleatum, and then Jen, and finally Caudatum was the slowest. I'm sorry, Caudatum. Good effort, good effort. All right, so now that I did the number line, you can pause this right here and look at number 7 and whatever other numbers have to do with this, because you can see here that these questions have to do, or number 7 has to do with this table. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, now that we've done that, you will do the next on your own. So number 11, you're simply going to use the greater than or less than symbol to compare A, B, C, and D. So number 11A, notice how we have 0.7 or 7/10, and here we have 652 thousands. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, that you have to go one digit at a time. In fact, just like by looking at number 11, what I highly recommend as you're showing your work, so the way that I would show my work for number 11 is this. I would write number 11. Yes, you have to show your work in your notebook, right? I would write the first number, so 7/10, and I would line up the second number with the decimal. So 652. And again, going from left to right, notice that the first number we encounter is the tenths, which is the 7 and the 6. So obviously the 7 is more than 6. So 7 would be the greater number. I believe that you actually have to type in the symbol on your laptop, which these symbols are above the period and the comma. You just have to hold shift and select either the period or comma, depending on what symbol you want. So please do so. And moving on to number 12, order these from least to greatest. Whenever you're doing this on Schoology, let me go to Schoology. I can't see anything. Give me a second. Whenever you go to Schoology, ladies and gentlemen, week 4, Wednesday. And you start a new attempt. It's taking forever, I'm sorry. There it is, and we start a new attempt. Sorry guys, my view is a little bit different. when you're ordering these, ladies and gentlemen, again, going back down to number 12, wait for it to load. Please note that there's a scroll bar on the questions where it's to scroll, so make sure that you don't accidentally trigger that. So 12A, B, and C. And that whichever number, let's say that I thought that 37, well, I forgot if it was least to greatest or greatest to least. In fact, I can quickly see that over here. From least to greatest. Okay, so let's go ahead and do least to greatest. So the least of all these, I think, would be 34. Okay, so if I thought 34 was the least, so notice how now 34 is in number 5. If I grab it, so grab and hold and drop it, notice that 34 is now at number 1. So just be very careful because the numbers over here will not change, but the ones over here will. If I want it to be the second one, there's the second one. So just be careful on that, okay? All right, having said that, ladies and gentlemen, I think you have enough to do this on your own. I know this was a longer video. Number 14, you just have to organize these from least to greatest. Also, you can definitely do that. And that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, please send me a message on Schoology, and I will try to get back to you promptly. Do not forget to upload a picture to OneNote. If you need help with that, ask your neighbor. Or send me a message if you're having trouble with that. And please submit on Schoology. I will be taking grades from that. So having said that, I will see you next time. And yes, I will see you next time.